Okay, welcome back. Tonight's first Daily Viewpoint Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel says he wants to downsize the U.S. Army and dramatically ebbs and flow in the personnel, the manpower of the U.S. Army is not unusual, not unique, but this is dramatic. Under this proposal, the U.S. Army would be at its smallest size since before World War II. It would drop from a post-9/11 peak of 570,000 active duty soldiers down to fewer than 450,000. Also, as part of the plan, an entire class of Air Force jets will be retired. So there is, arguably an opportunity here because we've pulled away from Iraq, now Afghanistan. So you want your expenditures and your manpower basically to be roughly equivalent to what you need. But this sounds, to a lot of people, this is dramatic, especially when you peel back the layers and see the specific cost savings involve really paring down the amounts we're paying some of the top leaders in the Army and cutting defense systems. And so the question becomes, are we vulnerable if we cut this much this quickly? Scott, what do you think?
Well, I think there's a lot of things to look at. Certainly vulnerable from a defense standpoint. I don't know. You'd like to think that potentially we're always ready. And that's almost 25% you're cutting. That's a good chunk of change. But you also have to look at the flip side of that. All these people that are now going to be taken out of a job, we already have some trying times economically in this country.
In the civilian
Exactly
economy.
right.
Yeah.
Now how are you going to bring in all these fellas that have kept us, and women, who have kept us out of harm's way, all these servicemen that have put their life on the line? We need to make sure that they've got something when they come back home.
Right.
Now, where do we put them at that point? So I think there's a lot of things to look at from this standpoint.
John, how do you see it?
Well, a reduction of forces, I'm sure, is necessary in some areas, but I agree with Scott. 25% is a pretty draconian cut. That sends a bad signal to Iran, which is shaking the sabers every day. North Korea as well. And the Russians are just testing their new stealth fighter, just like our stealth fighter. So I'm wondering if it's a little short-sighted, or maybe this is a test balloon to see how people respond or react.
Everybody else beefing up, and we look to be beefing down.
Right.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
And I often wonder if we always see, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. So maybe the issue should be reconstituting the structure of the Army so that there are more high-tech jobs, more people who work in controlling drones, or in the Air Force, for instance. So maybe we need to restructure the Army, but not let go of these people in whom we've invested so much time and training, and who in turn have invested so much in the defense of the country.
How would you like a job as Secretary of Defense? I like what you're saying.
Well, no, thank you. I'd rather be a consultant.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. But this is
your point's well taken.
It's dramatic, and of course, the other debate that we go through from time to time in this country is about closing bases. So you have to wonder if this is a precursor to that debate about now which Naval, Air Force, Army bases do we close. And we've been through those BRAC, remember the BRAC, Base Relocation and Closure Committee hearings. So
and weren't they going to ground some Air Force
jets? Yeah. And we talked during the break as to whether or not this is also going to ripple down to the Navy, to the Air Force, to the Marine Corps, and a cut in those forces as well. But it's troubling to a lot of people. Defense, as well as those of us who live in communities that rely so heavily on that military infusion of pay.
If you believe, as I think a lot of people do, that a strong military is a deterrent to an aggressor, this is taking away a lot of that deterrent. And this is emboldening, I think, to an aggressor like Iran or North Korea. They say, we scared them. And so I don't like psychologically what that does to the despots of the world.
I'm all about devil's advocate. You just what are they thinking about over there? Oh my goodness gracious, 25%. Go on home, guys. We don't need you.
Yeah.
What message does that send?
So you're saying cut, but not nearly this much.
Well, or as you said, strategically figure out maybe there's some other ways that we can, and we don't need to, tell people what those other ways might be.
Right.
But
announcing that
we're going to drop 25%, I think is a bad move.
Because then that sends a signal to the Irans and the
exactly
North
what John
Koreas.
just
This
said.
is time to move.
Yeah, absolutely.
Time to do something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, we'll see. This is a proposal, and so we'll see how far the Secretary of Defense gets with this proposal regarding the Pentagon staffing. Coming up next on the Texas Daily, the truth about those cute potbelly pigs, and of all sizes. Aren't they cute? Scott, you've got a couple out at the ranch, don't you?
4 or 5 anyway.
Well, okay, they're cute as piglets, but what happens when they grow up? One woman's mission to help. The plight of the pot-bellied pig. Coming up next. Stay here.
Okay.
Right here on the Texas Day.